The supermarket worker is in hospital after she was stabbed, allegedly by a teenager west of Brisbane. A 13-year-old is now in police custody after the Ipswich centre was sent into lockdown.
Let's go live now to Andrea Crothers at the scene for us this morning. Andrea, the woman was seriously injured.
Good morning, Sarah. This morning, that 63-year-old woman is fighting for her life, taken to the Princess Alexandra Hospital in a critical but stable condition. This after those shocking scenes at a Queensland supermarket. Police say a 13-year-old boy was here at Yamanto Central just after 5:30 last night when he unleashed on that Coles staff member, stabbing her in the back, leaving her with those life-threatening injuries. He fled the scene, taken into custody a short time later. Shoppers horrified.
The next thing, he was sprinting, like there was like 15 people chasing after him, and like, he was walked out in cuffs and everything, and he was showing like no emotion or anything, and I was just shocked because it was so little.
A crime scene has been declared. Police are appealing to anyone with any information to come forward, and I can tell you this morning that charges are imminent.
Andrea, thank you.
Now to the United States, where an all-out effort is in place to contain 3 remaining wildfires in Los Angeles as dangerous winds threaten to spread those flames. Firefighters entering their 7th day of emergency response, with the death toll now at 24. Live to 9's US correspondent Reid Butler, who's in the Pacific Palisades. Reid, what is the latest you're hearing from authorities?
Well, Jane, of the 3 fires that are burning here in the Los Angeles area, 2 are still considered very dangerous. The fire here in the Pacific Palisades area and the Eaton fire. But in good news on the firefighting front, both those fires have enjoyed a boost in containment. The fire here in the Palisades is now at 14% contained, which is a big improvement. And the Eaton fire, which has been the deadliest of these fires, is now at 33% contained, which is great news. But that is where the good news ends, unfortunately, because firefighters are today bracing for those severe extreme winds to pick up. Gusts as strong as 112 kilometres an hour. They're just starting to pick up now. They're coming in offshore. That combined with the bone dry relative humidity, and it is a recipe for disaster. The last thing that firefighters fighting these fires need right now. Looting, unfortunately, is continuing in the area too. More than 30 people have been arrested now. Some, as we've told you, masquerading as firefighters to try and avoid detection. And it's getting worse because right now in these evacuation zones, residents can't come back at all, even briefly to get medication or try and find their pets. And those criminals are taking advantage of that and coming in and trying to steal as much as they can. The death toll, sadly, as part of this disaster has climbed as well. It is now at 24. And as the conditions get worse, crews are trying to scour as much of the wreckage as possible to discover more remains. And the fear is that we're going to have that death toll climb even further. We just had an update from authorities on that front at a media conference. Have a look.
People are saying, I just want to go look at my house and I want to see what's left. We know that. But we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors.
Now, just on those dangerous winds we're expecting, there is a red flag zone, what's called a red flag zone, in place now for a huge part of Southern California, spanning from northwest of Santa Barbara, north of LA, all the way down to San Diego, which is south of LA. That's about 8 million Americans at risk as part of these conditions. The fear is that those high winds will cause embers to break containment lines, spark potentially new fires, and potentially force firefighting aerial appliances not on the ground, not able to take off and fight those fires from the air, which have been such an effective way of battling these fires. Looking around here in the Palisades, the scale of devastation is hard to comprehend. It looks like only the chimneys are standing in house after house here. It is shocking. More than 12,000 structures have been burned now, destroyed as part of this disaster. And the level of ground that has been scorched, Jane, to put it into perspective, it's the same geographical area as the city of Paris. So it's hard to fathom.
Just incredible, Reid. Thank you. A man is on the run after a hammer attack and car crash outside Dreamworld on the Gold Coast. 2 cars were involved in that road rage incident in the car park yesterday afternoon before a man was allegedly assaulted, sparking a foot chase through the theme park. 3 people have been taken to hospital. Well, there has been a bombshell at the Australian Open with Nick Kyrgios revealing that he might have played his last singles match in Melbourne after going down in straight sets of the opening round. Live to Today Melbourne reporter Christina Hearn. Chris, it's a shock admission. What did he say?
Well, Jane, he said that pretty much this was his last singles match here at the Australian Open because he reckons that his body just can't take much more. Of course, there was so much hype leading into his first Grand Slam match in more than 2 years. But unfortunately, he went down in straight sets to British rising star Jacob Fernley going down in straight sets. Nick Kyrgios says, look, he was struggling with injury. You could actually hear him on the court talk to his team, tell them how much he was hurting during that match, but he said he didn't want to give up because he didn't want to disappoint the fans that had queued up for more than 4 hours to actually get into John Cain Arena and watch him play. But he says while he'll continue to play the remaining Grand Slam matches for the rest of the year, he said that he just can't see himself coming back here to Melbourne Park and playing in the singles draw next year.
And realistically, I probably can't see myself playing a singles match here again. It's hard when you're competing for the biggest tournaments in the world and you're struggling to win sets physically. It's pretty tough.
So while he's left the door open to return here to Melbourne Park in future years in playing in the doubles, of course, he is such a big draw card here in the singles, as we saw last night, the huge crowd queuing up to see him at John Cain Arena, and Jane, could have been the last time.
Oh, that is so sad, Christine. Say it ain't so. Thank you. A 4-decade-long investigation into an attack on an elderly woman in Melbourne is narrowing this morning. Victoria Police issuing a fresh appeal after the 82-year-old was sexually assaulted twice in her Newport home way back in 1981 and 83. Investigators believe one man is behind both incidents, saying though Jessie is sadly no longer alive, these brutal attacks have had enduring effects on her family. Anyone with information that leads to an arrest could receive a $500,000 reward. Councils across Australia could be forced to hold citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day if Peter Dutton is elected as the next Prime Minister. Live to Sydney reporter Bianca Balzer. Bianca, he's planning to overturn Labor's 2022 change.
Jane, yes, the opposition leader, Peter Dutton, is stoking what has been a long-running political flashpoint. He's attacking Labor's stance on Australia Day, promising that within the first 100 days of his leadership, he would scrap this law that Labor brought in 2022, which allows councils to opt out of holding their Australia Day ceremonies. Their citizenship ceremonies on January the 26th. That gives councils the option to hold it 3 days either side. Now, the City of Sydney Council, which is just over the water there, is one of a handful of councils that have taken up on that offer, choosing to hold theirs after Australia Day. We're here today in Balmain. This is the council area of the Inner West. Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister's council area, yesterday he mentioned that they still do hold their citizenship ceremonies here on January 26th, but otherwise he did try to dodge the debate. The opposition leader, Peter Dutton, says that Anthony Albanese is signalling that Australia Day is something that does not matter and something to be ashamed of. Jane?
Bianca, thank you.